Not only does week 3 of the National Football League season start tonight, week 4 of the college football campaign does as well. And it's a great Saturday slate. 3 ranked versus ranked games, 4 ranked versus ranked games for the entirety of the weekend, including a big ball game tomorrow in Lincoln, Nebraska. So to get you set for everything, the Mouth in the South, we'll go through some SEC picks in just a second. But Mark Zinno is here on this Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. Zinno, great to have you here once again.
Gentlemen, I mean, this is better than Christmas morning every Thursday when I get to do this, guys.
Wow.
So, and I enjoy watching Ben make apoplectic faces at the things that I say, and DRS going, I see, yeah. So
yeah,
it's quite a harmonious mood we have.
Pretty good summary of how these segments go, and you're here for a full half hour. My favorite time. Anyways, let's get set for one of the marquee matchups on the slate. Top 20 tilt in Ann Arbor, USC's Big Ten debut, and the Big Ten opener for the Maize and Blue at home in the Big House. And yet here we are with the Wolverines for a second time this season as the reigning national title winners, a home underdog near a touchdown. They got blown out week 2 by Texas. They have not covered in non-conference play so far this season. And the Trojans now a 5.5-point favorite against Michigan. When the line opened up during the summer, Michigan was nearly a double-digit home favorite, laying 9.5. Maybe the reigning national champs not as good as we anticipated in their title defense. And maybe Southern Cal is better than we thought through the first 3 weeks. 2 games for USC to start off this season. So, how do you make sense of the line now with USC laying 5.5 on the road in Ann Arbor?
The number feels right. I mean, look, it's hard to bet against Michigan at home, particularly because of their defense. And it's fair to say at this point in time that USC hasn't faced a defense of this caliber. I mean, LSU, who they scored 27 off of, it's an SEC defense, so it's still good. But it's not one of those things where you look at them and go, that's as elite defense as Michigan is. Guys, I like the under here, particularly in the first half as well. Like, if we do some transitive property here, Texas only managed 31 against the Wolverines. I don't think USC's offense, even with Mitch Moss playing as well as he has, is at the same level as the Longhorns. So you have to believe that Michigan can keep them under 30 here. And do you really trust Michigan's offense to put up more than 10 to 14 in this game? I don't know that I do. I think the total is the right number. I would look at a first half under. If this thing doesn't stay under early, it's not staying under late. And really what it boils down to is how much can Michigan score. If Michigan gets to 20, this thing will go over. I just don't think they'll do it there. I think this is more of a 23, 14 kind of final, and that's what happens.
Yeah, we'll see how many times Michigan runs the football in that game, going to more a run-centric quarterback as opposed to a pocket passer. Should be a good one there in Michigan. But also, how about the Big 12 here, Mark, getting underway? Utah and Oklahoma State, 2 unbeaten teams, each 3-0. We look at the lines here at the FanDuel Sportsbook here in New Jersey, opened up as a minus 1.5-point favorite for Oklahoma State. That now sits at 2.5 and a total of 52.5. What are the expectations for you from Utah and Oklahoma State this week?
I mean, look, I get all the love for Oklahoma State. But you got to realize in this 3-0 start, they've actually been outgained by minus 16 yards per game. Like, that's not a trend that I want to back, guys. That's not a team that I want to get behind that can't outgain their opponents, because the more you do that, the more likely you are to lose games. You're going up against a very good Utah team that's well coached, that's always had a stout defense. I just don't know. You get Cam Rising, who is coming back to this contest here. Maybe a little extra motivation for the Utes offense. It's hard not to back Oklahoma State at home, but I can't get past kind of that yardage thing for me to believe that Oklahoma State is as good. For all intents and purposes, they should have lost the game to Arkansas. I think we viewed this whole match widely different if they end up losing that game. Arkansas dominated them for a better part of that contest, and it's just I'll probably pass on it, but I would lean Utah, as the rest of bettors have, taken this number from 3 to 2.5.
Well, it's been a very interesting market move on this game. Oklahoma State opened as a 2.5-point favorite on the FanDuel Sportsbook just yesterday and earlier this week. Utah was a slight favorite, laying nearly 2.5. Some may be thinking that Cam Rising would be back. We know what the injury status fiasco and disco dance can be with the Utes, as we saw all last year with Cam Rising, who did not play a single game in 2023. Now the line works back to the Pokes. Nearly a field goal favorite at home. Could that be an indication from those that know in those risk rooms that Rising is not going to suit up and play for Utah on Saturday in their Big 12 debut in Stillwater? It's very difficult to get a true sense. We'll say this. We have two of the longest tenured head coaches in college football, each at 20 years. Kyle Whittingham for Utah, Mike Gundy for Oklahoma State. Of four teams, that have been FBS programs for the last 2 decades in full, Utah is one of the four to have a cover percentage as an underdog at 60% or better. The other three, Ohio State, Clemson, and Boise State. And Utah has been an underdog much more frequently than that of the Buckeyes or the Tigers. Now let's go to another game. Our fourth of the ranked versus ranked games, as we'll include Tennessee and Oklahoma on the other side of the break. The kids get the day off tomorrow in Lincoln, Nebraska. School has shut down. The campus getting ready for Friday night lights and a top 25 tilt for Nebraska as they host Illinois. The first time the Cornhuskers have hosted in a ranked versus ranked game against an AP opponent since 2013. And it's a spread that's also been changing. Earlier in the week, 9.5 in favor of the Huskers against 24th ranked Illinois. Now closer to a touchdown, 7.5 in favor of Nebraska. 43 to hook the total for two teams that have been really good defensively so far this season. Zinno, what's the handicap? What's the breakdown for Friday Night Lights tomorrow in Lincoln?
If you think Nebraska's going to trip up and you think Illinois is going to be a viable play here, senses are, I don't want to cut a game in half like this because, there's obviously, Nebraska could be up by 3 and a late touchdown gets them a cover, something along those lines. But I get the sense that if Illinois is going to hang in this game, they're going to have a lead at the end of the first half. They're going to end up being able to control the pace in the outset. And Dylan Raiola and this Nebraska offense, it all of a sudden looks like it's as good as any in the country at this point in time because Raiola, we know, can sling it. We've seen it. There's enough evidence of it. I mean, the kid can play, and he certainly has given people reason to believe that Nebraska's offense is every bit as legit as they have shown. Point. I mean, here's the real rub, guys. I mean, when it comes to Illinois' defense, and you're looking at how good they've been, do you believe that the quarterbacks on both sides matter? Right? It's Dylan Raiola versus Luke Altmaier, and where is the edge? I think the edge was with Raiola. The edge is obviously with Nebraska at home, but this number to me feels like it's hard to bet and cover as really Nebraska is tested for the first time. I don't count Colorado as a test because their defense was so bad. And by the way, that could have been much worse than 28-10. Remember, they scored all 28 points in the first half and didn't score a single one in the second half because Colorado couldn't do anything against Nebraska's defense. So I trust the Nebraska offense here. I don't feel comfortable laying 7.5, but I think it's the Illini in the first half. Nebraska, kind of may pull away late here. I think this thing also stays on. I feel like this is a matchup, especially early, where both these teams will play it slow. They'll check each other. Neither one wants to make the first mistake. So I think the pace is a little bit slower in the first half.
Unders in all 3 games for both of these two teams this year. Two great scoring defenses. Illinois playing like the best scoring defense from the last time they were ranked in 2022. Nebraska ranked for the first time since 2019, the highest they have been ranked since 2016, the first 3-0 start for the Cornhuskers since that point. We have a ranked versus ranked matchup in Lincoln. For the first time featuring two teams ranked inside the AP top 25 since 2013. They are starting to say the Huskers are back. Nebraska, one of 4 FBS programs, along with Tennessee, Texas, and Ole Miss, to be a favorite in all 3 games this year and covered in all 3. Mark Zinno becomes the mouth of the South next. Live right here on this Thursday on the early line, setting the stage for week number 4 of this 2024 college football season. Mark Zinno is here, but we're about to dive into SEC country, which means he becomes the mouth in the South, and it's now time for his SEC picks. 4 ranked versus ranked matchups in week 4. One on Friday, of course, in Lincoln, Nebraska, between the Cornhuskers and the Illini of Illinois, and a top 15 tilt in Norman, Oklahoma, for the first ever game for OU as an SEC program. And who do they get to host? The most dominant team in college football this season. That would be Tennessee. The Volunteers, a 7.5-point road favorite as the 6th ranked team in the country against number 15 Oklahoma in Norman. A 7.5-point favorite, greater than a touchdown. In fact, Mark Zinno, this is the first time for a ranked Oklahoma team as a home underdog in Norman of 4 points or greater since 1978. Is the spread too large in favor of the Volunteers, or does it feel fitting for this matchup on Saturday night?
Well, what I will say, what didn't feel fitting was the title on top of that board, the Midwest matchup. This is the SEC. Little SEC showdown would have been fine. That's all you needed to do, Midwest.
Well said. Great alliteration, Mark. Great alliteration. That would have been really great.
Could be a copywriter, but I also could be an Oklahoma backer this weekend because the 28th ranked Sooners defense is what I'm really relying on here. Look, Tennessee's gaudy offensive numbers are a product of two things. One, they didn't play anybody. Two, they've had the fortunate pleasure of not having to play a true road game. And this is an environment that's going to be completely different. When you get these teams, guys, who you have played 3 weeks of football and they're playing their first true road game, the cover rate is really low in the first true road game. That 7.5 was a key number here that we're going to look at. Again, I think if Tennessee is going to win this game and going to cover this game, they have to make Oklahoma play from a negative game script, right? They have to get out very quickly, and they have to figure out a way to make Jackson Arnold the key player for Oklahoma at this point in time. Like, he has to be able to carry the team. And I don't know that we've really seen that in 2 matchups against Houston and Tulane. Temple doesn't count. They might be one of the worst 5 teams in the country. But you're talking about a guy really, that's hasn't thrown for 200 yards passing yet. That's the way Tennessee covers this game. They get out to an early lead, and they force Oklahoma to offensively play catch-up. But doing that against this 28th ranked defense is not going to be easy. So if Oklahoma sets the tone early, is able to force some 3-and-outs or some punts and keep them off the scoreboard, then guess what? They're going to have a great chance to stay in this game. I think the environment's going to be a little bit overwhelming for Tennessee and their young quarterback, despite how much, and I'm not even going to try to butcher his last name.
Say his name.
I know. It's I am a Leah. I just, Nico I. That's where I go. It took me about a year and a half to get DJ out. So it'll take me about a year and a half to get Nico. Yeah, well, he is 27, has been playing college football for 9 years, so I should know it by now. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, someone should tell DJU to hang it up. It's not going well. Anyway, we move on. All that said, I like Oklahoma this weekend.
All right, we have a missed opportunity here because a 12 o'clock game is going to start in Stark Vegas. This should be 3:30. We should be bringing back Vern Lundquist and Gary Danielson together in the booth to watch this game because Florida, exactly. If they take a loss, Billy Napier, who knows if he's coming back to town or even making it to the tarmac. Mississippi State, fresh off of getting destroyed, not by USC, not by Alabama, not by Auburn, by a MAC team in Toledo in their own building. 6.5-point favorite for Florida. 58 total here. What gives? Florida or Mississippi State? My goodness, what a Titanic battle here.
Yeah, and it's a good thing you used the word Titanic because one of these ships is absolutely sinking after this game is over. I mean, forgive the graphic, but this just feels like, both of these teams are sitting there with a gun to the back of their head, and whichever one loses, the bullet's going to get fired, and it's going to be over, right?
Goodness.
It's the only thing between Justin and Billy Napier. It's just like none of this ends up well. Someone's going to get bloody at the end of this thing here. Here's the rub, though. Mississippi State, the fact that they are an underdog at home here, that Florida's laying 6 points despite the variety and legion and litany of problems that they have across the board. Mississippi State is 0-5 against the number at home off a home game, and they are 0-9 against the spread as dogs when coming off a double-digit loss. By the way, Mississippi State has on deck Georgia, Texas A&M, and Texas waiting for them. If they don't win now, this could be a winless season, right? Like in the SEC, like a winless SEC season. If they don't get this game, they are in a world of trouble. I think, the knoll is hitting for Billy Napier that at some point in time, the axe is going to fall and he's going to be gone. But he can at least buy himself a stay of execution here by winning a game against a bad Mississippi State team that in reality may be one of the most 30 teams in the country. And that's tough to say for an SEC team.
So listen, it's Jeff Levy's first year, right? First time as a head coach at Mississippi State. We get that. We'll give him maybe a pass at least through the first month. Billy Napier does not get – okay, that's fine. But Billy Napier does not get that. If Florida loses this game, even on the road in Starkville, as nearly a touchdown favorite, they are going to Lane Kiffin his tush. He's not getting back on the tarmac, DRS. He's not even sniffing the charter plane back to Gainesville. He is getting canned right away. And as a favorite under Billy Napier since the start of 2022, the Gators are just 4-9 against the spread. Not great. Florida allowed more than 300 yards last week on the ground. Mississippi State let Tucker Gleason and Toledo throw for nearly 3 bills and 3 tuds last week. Toledo went into Stark Vegas, put up 41, and won outright as a hefty underdog against the Bulldogs. We love the Rockets, though, in the MAC on the way up. Quickly here, Zinno, as we look at the 2 top teams in the SEC, they have changed places in the AP poll. Texas now 1, Georgia now 2. Look how close they are from the odds perspective. Who do you still give the edge?
I mean, you can't doubt Georgia. Right? Texas still has to prove it. Georgia is still a team that's going to get better as the year goes along. Interesting bounce-back spot for them next week after the Kentucky game.
Georgia off this week. Texas has Louisiana Monroe. An off week then after, or Mississippi State after that. Then an off week before the Red River rivalry. Thursday Night Football talk next.